You slide yours back.
Which way? Toward me? Let's go.
No, like
Right
that.
there.
Yeah, there we go. I'm going to fix this.
Why bother now?
It pisses me off.
That's Easton's table. I want to know how we ended up getting such a small table.
What is the issue with the small table?
It's just dinky.
Okay, do you see the room that we're in?
Yeah, but we had
How much bigger you want to go?
We had a bigger room when we had it.
Do you remember what the issue was?
No.
Do you remember that when we would sit together that we would be covering each other up?
Talk to the hand because the head ain't listening.
Kiss my ass. It's a good design.
Hey.
You peckerheads come out here and start building. You
I can't even start the podcast.
That's because you're being a peckerhead.
Make sure all this goes. Make sure that you put this in the
You're
podcast.
being a yes.
You know what I love about that?
What?
If you really think about the root of that, there's been so many insults created around
A wiener.
a pecker that then calling it by the biological term is a great insult.
Yeah, it is.
Because nobody ever just calls you a
All right, guys, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And if you've been listening prior to me introducing today's topic, I'm apologizing now for then and for whatever may come out, because you never know with these two what's going to come out. So I just usually say one apology, and that covers everything. So, all right, but today we're going to be talking a little bit about let me go back. Number one, I'm David Holder with Raised Hunting, and I have Warren and Easton here today, and they are also with Raised Hunting. The one thing that we need to make sure that we remember, in case they forget, is to let you guys know. A bunch of you already know because we see your names come through that we do have products to offer you guys. We have scents, and we also have Knox. Along with
lighted Knox.
Lighted Knox. But we also have some apparel. We have books. We have all kinds of stuff. So if you haven't been to the Raised Hunting store lately, swing through.
We actually had somebody tell us that we should put our products on the table. And I was like, we must be doing something right if our listeners telling us, you put your stuff on the table.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that we want to address so that you guys understand. We probably are the anti-advertisers. I mean, as far as we just don't feel like we want to push products down anyone's throat. The scents came about because we were using them and we thought they worked, and people started asking me, what are you using? And so we shared those. And the Knox were because we got tired of buying everyone else's Knox and they didn't work. And then
At a ridiculous price.
At a ridiculous price. And then when they didn't work, you couldn't get a hold of anyone to fix them or to get new ones or anything like that. So we took it upon ourselves to see if we could come out with a way that people could get lighted Knox more affordable, that work more often. And if they didn't work, someone's going to stand behind it. That's where all this has come from. So anyhow, with that being said, today's topic is going to be recognizing your deer year to year, recognizing them from one year to the next. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We also have some questions that you guys have started filling our inboxes with stuff. But before we get to that, Warren's going to make sure that he does some shout outs, and Easton's going to just continue being stupid. So
hey, that was one of the bad bugs.
Apple people, you've been stepping it up. Really appreciate you. Colton says, love the show. Getting my Raised Knox in the mail today and ordering scents for this coming season here soon. Can't wait to try them out. Big Al 4424 says, these guys are awesome to listen to. If you're looking for great information, these guys are where you'll find it. I've been listening for quite a while, and there's never a dull moment. It reminds me of how I am with my dad and brothers when it comes to the products they offer. He says in all caps, they work, just as these guys explain them to. They're very honest, straightforward, and very helpful. All you have to do is contact them. Hey, we just mentioned that. You can actually talk to a human here, and they will help you out as best they can. Awesome work, guys. Keep it up. Appreciate you, Big Al. Jake Paris, 24. He helped me out with a wacky fact, the one on the leaf that gets spiny.
That was a really interesting one.
Yeah, he said, keep the good info coming, guys. I look forward to the podcast every week. I've listened to everyone, and they're awesome. Being from Pennsylvania, it's nice to hear tips from your dad about his Eastern experiences. If I come across any more wacky facts, Warren, I'll be sure to send them your way, especially since our one about the holly tree's got a green button. Keep up the good work. You guys rock.
And Vince, the little button man.
Witcher 177. Awesome podcast. Thanks for all the hunting tips and laughs and for the wacky facts. Always look forward to the new shows to listen to. You see, it seems as though there's a common theme with the wacky facts.
I enjoy them too.
Little button, man.
Freaking
all right.
swelling his head.
And Spotify people, you guys are freaking awesome. I think we're at 300, but YouTubers, got to give you guys some love too. Bucky Doe Downer 9040. Appreciate you, buddy. Tyler Akers DX8WC says, thanks for the shout out, guys. Oh, wait, he says, thanks for the shout out. You guys are the change our hunting industry needs, the real deal. We appreciate that, Tyler. We're doing everything we can. The _Chase810 says, only 1 month and 3 weeks till season here in Michigan. Great podcast.
Who's counting, though?
Tyler Cagle, 1486. He says, I want to hear each of y'all's opinions on this. It's the rut. You have no idea what bucks are on the place. No trail cameras. Where are you setting up? Please be detailed. Pinch point, water, food source. What do you do? What do you look for, and why? Do you sit all day, day after day in that spot, or are you bouncing around enjoying the podcast? Hope you all keep growing. We'll cover that one at some point here. It's a good one. B&B custom game calls. Great topic this week. Jake Rotman, 7803. He said, love the show. You should put your products on the table for us to see. Appreciate you, buddy. Jared Warnick, 7623. Still love the podcast. As always, was wondering if you guys could do one on Trigger Panic. Our season in September is here in Maryland, and I'm having trouble getting...
Yeah. Warren and I can take off on that one.
Well, according to TikTok, I can't talk on that either, so...
Yeah, Jared, check out our TikTok and Instagram. Ethan just did a really good tip on that, but we'll write that one down as well as a podcast topic that we can do shortly. Marshall McElhose, I think, 612. Love the show, fellas. Checking in from Dubuque, Iowa. Could you all do a show on broadheads, 2-blade to a 3-blade, expandables to fixed? I am thinking about switching up this season and curious to experience from all of you. We'll have to cover that one too. B&B custom game calls. David Harrison. Eric Robards.
Good job.
1209.
I was waiting for that one.
I've been shouting out Eric for weeks, and they sent us an email, and he said, please tell Warren that it's – I've been saying Eric Obards, and it is Eric Robards. So that's why it's important to use spaces.
And just so you know, remember that day that we talked about the little titties and that?
What?
Yeah, you couldn't figure out who it was.
Oh yeah.
That is Tom that hunted with us.
No.
Oh
yeah,
really?
Deweese. That was it. He texted me after that and said I was laughing my ass off driving down the road listening to you guys.
I wonder if he did that on purpose.
He said, but now I think I'm gonna have to change it because now you've put a horrible picture in my head of my own email.
He doesn't
or
realize
his own
what
handle.
it is.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those ones like where news anchors and stuff? People will call in and they'll like spell, they'll like do the D's nuts.
Yeah.
They'll spell it all weird, and so then they'll be like, D's nuts from Peckerville, and then they're like, oh, they're hilarious. Colton Gibson, 7519, Jeremy Rubsick, Travis Hunnleworth, 630, Troy Breaks,
Shuttleworth,
5686, and Drew Harvey.
That's a new one, ain't it?
And he's been on there a time or two, which he had a good one too.
Yes,
he said
he sent a message.
Oh, he sent a message. That's why I know the name.
Well, he also said, love the podcast and all the content y'all put out. I have a question I'd love to hear on the podcast or have y'all's opinion on it. He lives in southeast Arkansas, and we're having an early archery season buck hunt, velvet hunt. I'd love to hear y'all's advice for trying to kill a mature buck in early season. I have 2 properties I hunt. One property is a little over 80 acres of mostly timber, and I have minerals out and food plot in the middle of the property.
I answered this one.
There was one. Is he the one that lives in the same bottom that you used to hunt?
I don't think so.
Well, somebody from Arkansas lives in Hurricane Bottom.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and said that they wanted you to talk more on some of the stuff that when you were hunting there because that's where they were. So appreciate all you guys on YouTube. You guys are really helping us grow. If you guys enjoy the podcast at all on any platform, please leave us a review and share it with your buddies. It really, really helps us. And YouTube, you guys are really crushing it. So I'm sorry if I don't read your entire message, but we're getting to a point now, thanks to you guys, where there's enough of them that I can't, unless you just want to hear me reading those comments, then we got to go on at some point.
We'll get a sign back here that's just rotating through all their names.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do we want to answer Drew's question a little bit before
I think we
get
should do our year-to-year one and then get into that one because that one we can
go farther? Yeah, that's what I was trying to get into.
He covered his bases. He sent an email. He sent a comment on YouTube, Instagram.
So
I'll be right back. I'm getting good information for this. Go on.
So we lost one of our part of our podcast. Just walked out. We haven't even started. His brother didn't piss him off or anything. So I don't know what's going on. But that's typical, So anyhow, whenever the going gets tough, the tough just leave. Or
that
not.
didn't make sense. But anyways, go
Okay.
on.
So anyhow, today we were going to talk a little bit about recognizing your deer year after year, because we've gotten some people that have sent some photos in and said, "Is this the same deer?" It's one. I guess my opinion on that is, it just depends on the deer on how tough it can be. Because you take a deer like Straight Up, a deer that I killed 2 years ago. I think was it 2 years ago, Nick?
I think it was 3. I thought we just did
3.
this.
Well, it'll be the third fall. And so this particular deer, we have all of his sheds. We have every single one of them, and I killed him when he was 6. And he honestly didn't change at all as far as configuration as he grew. And so he looked identical. You could definitely tell it was him. But you get other deer, I would tell you, and that's why I was hoping Warren would put his headset back on, because I don't believe if you had not found bullwinkle, if we didn't have photos of bullwinkle or sightings of bullwinkle or video footage of bullwinkle through the years, from bullwinkle being like 3 or 4 when we had the first photos of him to when you killed him, I don't know that you would have recognized him.
I think from 4 till 6,
yes,
you definitely recognized him. 7 and 8, between like even 6 to 8, I don't know. It would have been one of those where you'd have been really like, I feel like you'd have been.
This time matches, but this one doesn't. But he was also on it, and so what was happening there is he got to a point where he was on his way downhill, and once they start going downhill, a lot of times you get a lot more mass at the base. Doesn't carry throughout. Tines don't get as long. They start to stunt stuff sometimes. The one question, though, that we've had multiple times is, will a deer flip-flop something, meaning like a split G2 or a split G3? And that's something that Straight Up did do. I don't know if it was every year, but maybe every other year, he would swap his G4. He was a 9, a typical 9, and his G4 would move from the right to the left.
Yep.
Or if we covered it on 1, but whether an 8 can be more than an 8.
Become a 10 or something like that.
A lot of people think that they can't change or they can't do something else.
Well, I think so. One, did you already talk about Derek?
No.
So shout out to Derek. This one, you can cut this out and you can take this to the bank and you can tell your buddies that you are right and they are wrong. So Derek is actually kind of why we're doing this.
Right.
One is he sent us a picture of a deer from last year and then a picture of a deer this year. Now the deer grew a lot. And his buddies are telling him that it's not the same deer, and he's thinking it is the same deer, and they're saying it's not the same deer just because he grew a lot.
And because they had another kicker on this or that or something, and they didn't think it was
right.
And they would do that.
I have 3 reasons why I think that deer is the same deer. 1, the rack configuration is the same. 2, the pictures are in the same place.
Yep.
You can see from his trail camera photos, they're the same spot. And then number 3, if you look at the deer's body, he has a ton of white on his legs, like almost a white sock all the way up his leg. And you can see it on both the deer from the year before and the deer that year. Too many similarities, in my opinion, that say that it's not the same deer. So, Derek, you are right. I'm 100% confident. You could DNA test that thing, and it would be right. But so now I think let's try to think about this.
Hold on, because I disagree.
You looked at him?
I did look at him, and I don't think you can be that certain. And the reason I say that is, number one, this year's photos are nighttime photos. So I can't see
There's a daylight photo.
I thought the daylight photos were all of this year.
I circled it in red, the white spot on it.
It's a thing.
And sent it back to you both.
I didn't get that part. But because that is the number one way. If you get something like a droopy ear, we've had that happen. You get a white sock that you can recognize, or white feet. We've seen that one. A black deer. I mean, we had a deer that, I knew it was the same deer every year because he's black colored.
Yeah.
Now he would lose that.
Really easy.
He was. It was super easy.
The only African American deer running around out there.
Well, but when
point is you're looking for something that doesn't change.
Yeah, the antlers can change, and the deer, the body parts of them does not necessarily change.
Well, that's what I was. So let's just say you have a deer. What is the first thing that you're looking at to try to identify that deer a year later?
Well, naturally, the first thing you see is their antlers that are similar, in my opinion, and that's what sets me off first. After that is like, oh, this could be that deer from last year or whatever. Then it's go pull up photos and everything that I have from last year. I'll look at for whatever reason, I always look at like eye guards. Eye guards is a big one because they seem to have pretty consistently deer have like different eye guards, whether it's angled in, angled out, curved a little bit, curves forward, curves back. And for whatever reason, that seems like a characteristic that stays pretty similar throughout the years. So there's one buck right now that you could pick him up right away because his eye guards hook in every year, gypsy.
Yep.
And that's the first thing I look at because it seems to be the most consistent throughout year to year. And then after that, you're looking at I look at tines, but not like the length, but I like to look at like the distance between them and stuff to see if they're similar, how like, yeah, maybe he grew and maybe it's a little wider, but we're like in a ratio you'd be looking like that makes sense. It looks similar. It's not like super close together and they're not super wide or something. All things that seem to be similar, where like I feel like there's quite a few things that they don't change as much as they do others.
I think
well, hang on, because I think there's one other thing that factors in as much as the deer itself is the location.
Location is huge and how it's acting.
And that if I'm getting a picture of a deer on the same camera, on the same scrape, or on the same rub tree, or on the same place that you're feeding them, or whatever it is, then you'd start to be able to say, okay, well, he was there at this time last year. Does it look like the same deer?
Yep.
You know? So location can be as big as the deer itself.
I agree with that 100%. I think the hardest year to guess is from 2 to 3.
And they could throw on a crap load.
Yeah, which that's what's, I think, why I grabbed BG, because in all honesty, that's the other thing is if you do have their sheds, you can look at the pedicle, and usually that is pretty dang identical. But that, to me, if you didn't, you got to have a lot of trail camera photos, because if you didn't have a lot of trail camera photos, I feel as though that would be a pretty tough one to say. That deer went from this to this
in
1 year.
Well, I think
1 year, and that is the same deer. But
I think the other part that we are fortunate at is not only do we have trail camera photos, but occasionally we film them. And then you get like multiple angles, them moving around, because this is the year that I passed him.
yes,
And he's laying underneath my tree. And so Eli had footage of him sleeping and everything else.
But right. Well, the other thing, so like is what I'm saying is if you're looking at this, you can't get too detailed. Because if you said, well, his G3 now is longer than his G2, that would not be true here.
Yeah.
But that is a big giveaway to me. This kind of bent bladed G2. You see where he was going to, yep, and then he splits that G2, and then this, how it kind of he swoops way up, but then now he kind of crab claws his G4, and the beams come up. If you look at it from behind, I mean, everything is the same. The eye guards grow the same way. The beam sweeps the same. The tines are the same. He just grew a lot. But now let's just say that you didn't have this one. Let's just say you didn't have pictures of him that year or something. He did like a Bullwinkle thing. Now, do you think that you're going to guess? Do you think that if we didn't know BG at 3, would we have known that this deer is BG?
No.
I don't think so either.
It'd been tough. Because, I mean, look at the size of the G4 compared to what you're looking at a G4 on that 2 years prior.
Well, I mean, and then like this side, that's not really, I mean, well, the only thing is like if you look at
there's a big eye guard one right there.
I was just going to say.
The little curly Q on his eye guard is there.
Watch your drink. If you guys are watching on YouTube, that is exactly the same, that little curl. But I'm not going to sit here and say that we would know for sure, because I think we would have an awfully hard time.
You could look at that G2 as well, and that G2 is curved hard on both of them.
Yeah, and then it sweeps up there. So that one would be really tough. But then the interesting thing about it, because even if he had just matched this side to this, I think he still would have been tough. Because the dead giveaway to me is the left side looks very similar to the right side of 3. You know what I'm saying? With the split, he has the split G2, and then I can't remember, did he have a split G3 on his left side when he was 3?
Yeah,
I thought
it was
he did.
split on both sides.
But he had a G3 split too?
No, I don't think the G3 was, just the G2. G2 was split on both sides.
Okay. But that side, although it's his left side, matches this side really well, in my opinion. Even though there's no split on it. So, like, if he'd have matched just like this, I'd have had a hard time saying that for sure that was BG. But at the same time, too, we're not always having to try to guess 30-inch jumps on them every time.
Let's try to get out of the physical examples here, because half our viewers aren't going to be able to see it. So the characteristics, if you could break down everything that you were just discussing, though, those are things you're looking for. So your number one, I think that for everybody, it's going to be, it looks like another deer you recognized from the year before, antler-wise, and that's what starts you. And then you get into your smart stuff, not necessarily smart stuff, but characteristics that you can say is really freaking similar. So what? Oh my goodness, it's got to be the same person.
Well, here's the thing I would tell you guys, and what?
You can go ahead.
Well, and I don't do it as much as I used to. Warren, I think, still does it some. Sometimes you have to study pictures. I mean, like, you got to break them down. You got to, and that's where, honestly, I run a lot of my cameras now on video, because I can scroll through the video of them turning their head, and you get much better angles, and you can stop them wherever you want. And really, because sometimes it can be as simple, not even a full point or something like that sticking off. We had a deer at one point that was growing a tine out of his back of his head, or back of his rack. Mm-hmm. You called him spine tine.
Yep.
Then we had that 12 that had the same thing. Then last year he didn't grow it. So there can be little tiny things that, had you not had good video of it, or it depends on your camera how many pictures you have of them, you may miss something that could tell you that it's the same deer. Another one is an injury, can be a big one. We have deer that we've recognized because they only have one eye. But Mr. Liss is one that would fit in that category of easy to tell.
Yeah.
Because he always grew the same rack.
Yep.
It was just from the time he was, which I think the first time Alyssa shot him, I think he was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And that sentence together is funny.
What?
The first time Alyssa shot him.
Well, she shot at him twice and hit him once, but just nicked him.
I had one that the only reason I could even say that it was a similar or the same buck was simply off of the location and how he acted. And I mean, there were similarities, but that was Elliot last year. I had a deer last year that showed up, but the year before was only one antler, and he grew one antler like that. I mean, he screwed something up in velvet because it wasn't an injury or anything. And he had one side, it was his right side that was a good 8. That was about it. And I was always sitting there. He was everywhere, running around all over my cameras all the time. I'd see him all the time. I'd pass him all the time. And the only reason I kept paying attention to him was I was like, man, he's got a good side, like a real strong right side. I wonder if next year, if I could somehow identify this deer, if he's alive, you'd be able to pick it up, and if he grows, because I feel like he's got potential, even though he's screwed up. And the next year I had a buck show up that I did not recognize that was like 150s, like just a stud. And his right side looked just like Elliot's side. And then I was like, yeah, right. This is a big deer compared to what he went from the year previous. Well, as I kept getting pictures of this deer, I started looking and getting more angles and stuff, and he was doing literally the exact same thing that the Elliot deer was doing the year previous, was all over the cameras, was running around in different spots. It was the same location as the year previous. And his one side that he did have the year previous was like identical, just in a bigger form. And so I would have told you that if I was on somewhere and I didn't know, I would never put those two together. But the fact that I knew him the year previous and how he was acting and everything, that was the only thing that gave me the confidence. Like, has got to be him, because that means that he disappeared and another bigger deer showed up and was really similar and acting identical. So you right there is a great example of use the location if you've seen him there or not.
Well, I think age would be the other one that you need to keep in mind. So I think I don't even try to identify 1-year-olds most of the time, but 2 to 3, usually they're going to be more clean. And then if you can identify them from 2 to 3, they're also probably not going to throw a ton of junk. They might, if it's going to be a deer that's going to end up throwing a lot of junk, he might have a sticker here or there or something like that. You should be able to recognize them most of the time from 3 to 4, in my opinion. But 3 to 4 can be tough too, because they can jump a lot. So I think if you have a deer that's in the same area and his rack looks pretty much the same, and that other one that you thought could have been him is missing, or it's this one that did a 25-inch jump or 30-inch jump, it's probably that deer. He just grew a lot. And then it'll help too if you look back at previous years. Thor used to do the exact same thing that
Straight Up did. Swap sides.
Yes, and it's crazy because I have his shed from the left side, and then obviously when I killed him on his right side, and the left side shed matches absolutely identical to the right side. It's just bigger when I killed him, and he'd just swap his split G2, and his G4 would be or his G3 would be dinky on the other side. And he would it was like take the exact same antlers and then just flop them.
I think that's pretty common. Like, I pretty consistently will pay attention to, like, I find it normal when they switch year to year.
Yeah.
That
it's especially splits.
Yeah,
it just
seems
seems
like the
the
G2s are a big one, too.
splits or G3 splits will flip-flop. And
it's almost like it is just an every other year thing. It switches to the right, to the
right.
left, to the right, to the left.
The thing about Straight Up was that, like, and maybe there's something to that. It wasn't like he had a really good G4. It was always a weak G4 too. And then it would just swap to the other side. Where It doesn't seem like when you get a solid 7 or 8 inch G4, something that's there, that doesn't seem to make the switch.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. There's one other characteristic that I've seen that we haven't talked about is, and I named this deer because of it, was squiggle. And that is they'll break tines. And there are deer out there that I believe they have some genetic malfunction, they're missing some mineral or some supplement in their body that they're not getting. It makes their antlers brittle and they constantly break.
Yeah, it seems like the ones that do that is consistent.
It is.
Like, I can think of 3 or 4 off the top of my head that we all know that, like, kill him before
or he's going to
end
be
of
broken.
October, or he is going to be smashed up left and right.
Squiggle would, and I'm not talking about breaking in mid-November. A lot of them get broken by after that. But Squiggle was always like before November, he would break a tine. Sometimes it was even in velvet. You would see like what looked like a bent tine. Then when he came out of velvet, it would just fall off like he had already done it. It was something already wrong.
Gypsy will snap it off at its beam every year. Literally 3 years in a row has snapped his entire beam off. Somewhere between his G2 and G3 every year.
Well, I'm hoping that we have a deer, and I won't say where he is.
He's got a lot of mass, too.
Or name. But we have a deer that last year broke part of his main beam off. And when he's got all of his points, he's not huge, but he has a lot of points. And I'm hoping that he doesn't.
Who are you talking about?
I call him the 14.
Oh.
But I'm hoping he doesn't have that characteristic because last year, I honestly think that's what saved him though, because he doesn't just live on us. He obviously is going to be able to get to other farms, and he was missing half of his main beam. If you hadn't had a video or a photo of him early in the season, you wouldn't know what all was missing. He was missing like 4 points.
I think so. Let's just try to think of a few tangible things that you could tell somebody here. If you're trying to identify a deer, here's what you should look for. So one we've already said would be location. Is it in the same location? The next thing I think I would tell you is look at their eye guards. Do their eye guards match? I think from there, frame. And when we say frame, like that he was really wide or he
curved
sweeps
in
up
tight
or yes, like that. Their frame won't change that much. The other one would be mass. If you had a deer that the year before was heavier than what he is now, it is not the same deer.
Right.
Unless he's 8 years old or sick maybe. But even it seems like once they hit a certain level of mass, they will never lose.
They either have it or they don't.
Mass.
I don't even see deer.
The one I've seen that has gone down some, and it wasn't even some would be KB, but he was old, and he never had very good mass in the
No,
first
he
place.
was-
Bullwinkle a little bit too.
Yeah,
From
Because
6.
if you remember, KB was another one that was
snapping
all the time. But his thing was he wasn't heavy, and he had lots of points. He had
and
the
he would
opportunity.
be willing to fight.
I think he
So
was a fighter, and
yeah.
so, but he would carry his into November. You knew if you didn't kill him when they did get serious about fighting, he was probably going to snap something off because he had his tines just stuck up there. You know, he was not built for fighting.
Yep. So I'd say from 4, once you can identify him, to 3, then from 4 to 6, they should be relatively easy to recognize. After 6, now it's going back
Gets
to 2
hard.
to 3, because they could shrink. Bullwinkle, I think, shrunk about 15 to 20 inches from 6 to 7. And then from 7 to 8, he only shrunk probably another 5 or 6 inches from there. But from 6 to 8, he went from knocking on 190 to 172. So an 18-inch difference. And one side was 67, and the other side was 87. So he looked a lot different than what he did when he was 6 years old. So I think that's a few things. But I would also tell you it's hard sometimes, because I can think of 2 situations. One, there's one deer right now where I'm pretty sure I got it wrong. That does not happen all that often. RJ, I'm pretty confident I messed his up.
Age-wise or?
Age, but from going off of his rack.
Right.
I'm surprised because he has a double throat patch.
Well, that's how I ended up figuring it out, I think. But at the same time, I don't have any good daylight pictures of when I think it was him when he was 2, because he was too small that we weren't really
watching him,
saving those photos. Yeah. And then the other one would be those 2 10s that we had.
The twin 10s?
Yes.
And
the one we have a velvet
that I always
of
liked.
That were, like sometimes you can have deer. These 2 deer,
the
only reason we know they're different deer is because one has a split on his G3 and the other one's on his G2. Because forever, actually this year, we got a picture of one of them again, and we were all sitting there, and I'm like, I'm telling you, there's another one. And they're like, what? I'm like, yes, we're all talking about the same deer, but there is another one. So I tell Dad, go look at this trail camera. And sure enough, there is 2 deer, and those deer are
very similar,
absolutely identical.
I've seen them together. I've seen them standing there together in the field, and it's like
those 2?
Yeah.
No, he's talking about 2 different deer.
Oh, I'm referring to the ones that for whatever reason, anytime I was up there, I would always see them together.
No, I'm talking about the big velvet one this summer. Pretty big.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't talking about that.
Yeah.
The one I was talking about, you couldn't miss. There was not a G2 split or anything. It was straight up 10.
Yeah.
And they both were freaking identical.
That was like KB and Cage. They had to have been related.
They had to.
But that's a big
they
thing to
look
pay
like
attention
brothers
to, though.
And so these 2 bucks, both of them are dead now. Warren ended up killing KB, but Cage, now what they would swap, which was weird, between each other, was they would swap 2 dagger points.
Like that long.
Yeah,
right
like
out of the center of the base.
But pointing forward, for those of you that are just listening, what I'm talking about is 2 points that would come off of the eye guard, below the eye guard, right out of the base and stick straight forward. And 1 year Cage had them, 1 year KB had them. And it was just kind of like you didn't know which one. They never had them at the same time. Cage, I honestly believe, had the better genetics. I mean,
there was no thought. He definitely did.
Well, we just don't know because I think he got killed when he was 3.
Yeah.
Because he was 170-some inch deer at 3 years old. KB had a lot of points, but I don't think KB was quite that big. He was too thin.
Yeah.
You know, he was probably in the 160s. But these were 2 I believe that they were actual brothers.
Yeah.
But I have no way of knowing that.
So moral of the story, recognizing deer from year to year is going to be kind of difficult. Like there's not really a concrete way to be able to say this is what you do.
I think the best thing you can do is, not really you can do it, but I think what helps us is that we have enough cameras out that we get them in a lot of different places, even if it's the same deer.
Well,
and getting you different angles is very difficult. If you don't have enough angles, you're not going to be able to identify it.
And I think that's where what we do a lot of times, in case you guys, and it doesn't take special software. We have stuff because of the video purposes, but you can do it just by throwing it in whatever video or photo software you have and bring it up. get the exact same angle, stick a photo next to each other. That's when a lot of times when you can put them side by side, you'll see really close similarities.
So what he's trying to explain there really is go find 2 pictures of the deer you're looking at and try to find the most similar angles and double click on both of them, and they're both going to pop up, and then you'll have 2 windows with a picture of one and a picture of the other. That's it. Don't go using Photoshop or some photo software to pull this up or that. Click on the pictures.
Yeah,
that's it.
But that's not necessary, because the other thing is, depends on what trail camera you're using and what quality photo you got, or what quality video.
You're still going to double click on the thing.
I understand that, but my point is, as soon as you start to zoom in on it, try to make it bigger, it gets all pixelated and you can't tell anything.
Well, you can't do anything about that.
You better buy a better quality camera.
That's it. There's no software out there that's going to make your crappy photo better.
I don't know. I'm just telling you that when you have eyes like mine, it sure helps being able to pull it up on a computer.
So he has a hard time. So I made it simpler for you guys.
So I would agree.
When in doubt, double click. That'll do.
Yes.
Or
but we do have. But I mean, without a doubt, there are some times when we disagree on whether or not it's the same deer or not. I'm trying to think of one that we are. I mean, it just.
Me and you were arguing about one we've been watching all summer.
Yeah, well, I agree that I think the deer that we saw the other day, I told Easton that this deer was a deer I call swoops. Not a big deer. Again, when I say not a big deer, he's not a Boone and Crockett kind of deer. He's 150 something. He's nice.
He's
deer.
wrong. He's like upper 160s probably if he grows.
But the deer we saw the other day looks just like him. He has a crab claw to make his G4 on one side, and that deer's too wide.
Yeah, I know.
And
that's
thin.
He's also never summered there.
No, I agree.
So that doesn't make sense either.
Totally different spot. But he's probably an offspring.
They're similar for sure. But I don't think I've ever seen one completely change where there's summer like that from a mile.
Other than Nomad, which he was summering everywhere.
Nomad doesn't count because he was all over the place.
But anyhow, so I don't know. What are some of the other characteristics? Is there anything that we missed? I think you covered the 3 top ones: location, eye guards, and configure.
The only thing I was going to say is I feel like stickers. It does seem like or splits that they swap them. Drop tines,
come
which
and
we
go.
do not have that many of. It seems like, but it's always on the same side.
I can't speak on that one. I have not had enough.
Well, the only one I'm thinking of is the drop tine deer that we had last year. Showed up during the season. Pretty good drop tine, like 6-7 inches.
Talking about the one I saw?
Yeah. The one I made Alyssa pass if he was going to come by. You know which one I'm talking about?
It was me and you sitting in the skyscraper stand or whatever, and I said, that thing looks like he's got a freaking drop tine.
Right?
Yes.
I couldn't film him because
That
he's
deer.
through the brush, yeah.
I'm 90% sure I saw him the other day, and he is exactly the same size, but he has the drop on the exact same spot, and it's like
it's pretty definitive,
6 inches.
too, because it's way far back on his beam, I think.
It's like it almost looks like a kicker. Like it's right out of his G2. But I'm trying to think of. I thought we had a few others, and they weren't all that big, but they were always on the exact same side.
Had a drop.
Was his on the
right side, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
I'm thinking of the shed that we got in.
But then he didn't have it the next year.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever grew it again, did he?
Yeah, just the 1 year, I feel like.
That was a little one.
Yeah.
I wonder if that deer that Nate was sending us the pictures of last year, if he had that drop the year before.
Well, point being that there's some things. I wouldn't say that you can 100% say that they're all going to, these specific things are going to be consistent throughout. It's a wild animal, so you're looking at something that could potentially be different.
There's just a high probability.
Variance,
but the one that seems to be consistent is mass. They've got mass. They keep getting mass, keeps adding to it. If they don't have mass, they don't grow it 1 year and go back the next year. You can look at
more. I would say it's more common though to see them if they are not as heavy, and eventually start putting on more mass versus the alternative, not seeing them go down very much.
The only other
but
one
I've seen some start putting some mass on. Nothing significant, but
is points when they're young. Like you can't if you're like, well, he was an 8 last year because your deer. He shot a deer 1 year that I think when he was 3, he was a 145-inch 8, beautiful 8, but I mean clean 8. Could not have been any more of a clean 8. The next year he turns into a 160-inch 10 with 6-inch
G4s
G4s on both sides. So if they're still young like that, I mean, even when they're older, I guess they can probably still go from an 8 to 10, but more likely when they're
Yeah,
2,
I'm
3,
pretty sure
4.
that deer was 3.
Not when you shot him, I don't think.
I think he was. He might have been 4, but
I think he was 3.
I
Which
think he was
deer?
3. The wide 10.
Oh,
Wow, that one just got more painful then.
Yeah.
I think he was 4. We're going with 4 because he's dead and it makes you feel better.
Well, 3-year-old shouldn't walk by at 160 inches at 6 yards. That makes it tough.
All right, what was the question we were going to dive into? Or did you have a few?
Yeah, what was Drew's? We mentioned it, so we should definitely mention or talk about it.
I live in southern Arkansas, and we are having an early archery season buck hunt, velvet hunt. I'd like to hear y'all's advice for trying to kill a mature buck in early season. I have 2 properties I hunt. One property is a little over 80 acres, mostly timber, and I have minerals out and a food plot in the middle of the property. I have one really good mature buck on the property.
should we be reading
Yeah,
this?
let me read. This is on YouTube.
Doesn't even matter.
I think
we
he sent
can-
the same one on YouTube, though, didn't he?
I think we can paraphrase it. I think we don't have to read it
Okay.
verbatim. So basically, what's his name? It's Drew Harvey. That's what I thought. So Drew is asking. He lives in Arkansas. Arkansas, I think this is the first year that they're having a velvet hunt. They're actually going to get to hunt deer early September. And he's asking, how would we go about hunting a deer that time of the year? We got to do this a little bit in Montana. It just depended on when the season would fall, because Montana opens their season on the first Saturday. So some years they're still in velvet. Other years, if it was as late as the 7th, most of the time they were out. And because I think all of us would agree, the number one key that what Drew is looking for, now he goes into more detail and explains what he has property-wise, but you need to key on food. And that food there's going to be in the deer themselves will be in some type of pattern at this time of year going to and from food. And that's probably the furthest they're going to go at that time.
Well, one of them in there that he had said that I believe it's the 80-acre piece or 70 or whatever it was, that he has a
Food
very
plot.
large mature buck, though,
Okay.
that he has during daylight. And is eventually he starts to go,
Just
like
go
or he
nocturnal.
switches to where he's only getting them in the same spot at night. So he would get him during day, and then on that same camera, eventually it turns to like 3, 4 in the morning. And in that situation, the benefit here, I asked him, number one, what time is the velvet hunt? I'm assuming if they're doing an early season velvet hunt, then
Probably
they're
September 1.
going to be pretty freaking early, and it's just going to be guaranteed early. So in that case, he's probably, if he's done this multiple years in a row, he's probably doing the same thing. So I would be trying to do what we've just talked. I feel like we talked about it over and over again the past couple weeks, but backtrack the deer, trying to figure out where, or as close as you can get to him to where he is hanging out during the day, because he is somewhere during daylight hours. So figure out where that's at, or start trying to move some cameras around, because if you can figure out where he's at, he's probably not going to change it a whole heck of a lot between now and September 1 or whatever your early season is, because it sounds like he just changed. So in my opinion, he's either going to kind of keep doing what he's doing right now, or he was in a transition anyways and you're about to not see him at all. But it sounds to me like the deer stays around. So I just be trying to find him during the daylight. When you find him during the daylight, then freaking hunt it with the right winds, and you should have a pretty good chance, because like you said, they're not doing all that much. They're doing pretty consistent things as far as a pattern goes. Like that is like I wouldn't even care about food. I don't care about food. I don't care about timber. I don't care about bedding, any of that. I just care about where is the deer during daylight and where is he going to. If I can figure out that, yes, that might be bedding. Yes, that might be food. But if I can figure out that deer, I don't care about all the other stuff that I normally do during the season. I'm just simply trying to figure out what his pattern is and go hunt the pattern.
Is this, so he's already seen this deer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell you what I would do, Drew. If I'm going to assume that Arkansas deer are the same as Iowa deer in the summer. They are very patternable. I would be going out right now, and I'd be sitting on that field. I'm assuming that he's coming to a field, probably a bean field or maybe a cotton field or whatever they have in
I
Arkansas.
don't think they eat cotton, really.
They don't
don't
eat
know.
cotton. They use cotton to bed in.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, wherever he's going to feed in the evening that you're seeing him during daylight, I'd be going there and I'd be sitting a ways away from that every evening, and I'd be taking notes on each trail that he comes out. Then I'd also be checking my wind every single time, and then here in the next week or two, it opens September 1.
I'm just guessing if they're doing an early hunt. They might open it in August. I don't know.
They're saying it's a early velvet hunt or whatever, so we are just assuming
see if
that.
I can see it.
And down there, it's probably going to be a little later than what ours is. It's on September 1st, actually. I think I looked this up.
Okay.
Wait, no, I looked up a Kentucky one. Never
So
mind.
I'd be waiting till I was within 2 weeks, I think, of opening day, watching him take notes. And now is what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till the wind is right, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to hang a set on every trail that he comes out of.
September 7th through the 9th.
Ooh, I don't like that.
3 days is all, huh?
I mean,
Is during the 2024-2025 season is September 7th through the 9th.
okay. So I may adjust a little bit then. So I'd still be doing pretty much the same thing. September 7th through the 9th is not as much of a slam dunk
It's
as
the first full weekend
the
is what
first.
they do it.
Well,
So-
here's the thing, though. Theirs is going to be a little different because
They're
they're
gonna be
farther
later.
south. So that's why they're
Okay.
they're probably okay.
Okay. So I'm still, anyways, my process is still the same. We'll be watching him. I'm going to be making notes on every trail that he comes out. Then I'm going to wait till a day where I know the wind is not blowing anywhere near his bedding. Because in my mind, if he's doing the exact same thing, I'm going to do absolutely everything I can not to screw that up. And then I'm going to hang a set. Let's just say that he's coming out in the bean field and you need an east wind or a west wind. If you know which way he's coming out of, I can, as long as I have one of those two winds or maybe even south blowing out into the bean field, then I could hunt either one of the sets. But I'm going to hang one set on one side of the trail, then I'm going to hang another set on the other side of the trail, and I'm going to do that for all of the, hopefully, I would probably narrow it down to two main trails. And I'm going to then try and cover the most amount of ground between those two, and then depending on the wind those days, I'm telling me which one I'm going to go sit in. So I'd have 4 stand options.
Well,
to
this
go
is
sit on
this
him,
would be a
and
great
I'm trying
place
to kill him.
to employ if you
first
have
day.
a saddle. Because
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to hang anything. You could just go. You might want to go in and clear a
At
couple
least
tree lanes.
Put steps up.
Yep, and
stuff.
already have it so that you just go up and you just decide which one you want in, and you're there.
Yep.
Um,
That's what I'd be doing, and I think that you'd have a really good chance, especially if the wind cooperates with you.
but now he mentions, and I'm not sure which one it is, that he mentions he's got a food plot that's in the timber, it sounds like.
I think that's on the one where he has 2 or 3 mature bucks.
The second property he has is on the river with multiple mature bucks.
Okay,
That he also does have a food plot on as well.
So they both do.
gotcha. And so it may be a matter of putting trail cameras on your food plot and seeing if he's coming into the food plot early rather than you're doing the same thing Warren just explained, except for just watching the food plot. If there's no way to see them from the road or something like that.
Yep. The only other thing I would say, too, is I'd be watching the other deer that are coming out and be mindful of where they're at. Because if you set up somewhere saying, well, he comes out this trail, but this other buck comes out this one every night, if that deer's going to get there and wind you first, it may not matter.
Right.
So you still got to be somewhat conscientious of that.
The other thing I was going to mention, and the state took care of it for you, is by saying you only got 3 days anyhow, is you got a very narrow window here.
Yeah.
You know, because once they come out of velvet, you might get a deer that does the same thing the next day or 2 days. But in my opinion, or my experience, especially in Montana, I don't know if you guys remember, you probably don't, you were too young, I think, but Warren might, we would sit up on a hill and watch those fields, those alfalfa fields. And the most I ever saw in those fields was 80 bucks in one evening. And then that would continually, and they would stay there all the way through August. And that's what Waylon loved so much, was he was going to be the first one after him, because that's what he's taxidermist. So he needed to kill his deer early to be in the office to work, you know. And so he was in there when we had the September 1. We knew exactly where those deer were going to come out. We knew exactly where to put a blind or a tree stand, and he would be sitting there. But you could watch it. It would go from 80 to 50 to 40 to 20. And they were just, as soon as they started to come out of velvet, it was like every day 10 more would leave. And so it was like that would happen in a few days.
Yeah.
That they were there and then they were gone.
That's crazy. That's so many bucks.
It was. It was so much fun. You know, not all of them were big, but I mean, it was just cool to sit there and watch that many bucks. When it was in its heyday, that was one of the funnest places I've ever hunted, you know. And that whole thing got ruined by cows is what happened. Is the landowner was trying to try a different method where you section off your alfalfa, let them graze it, and he let them overgraze it, and the alfalfa went to nothing. And then that wasn't the draw for the deer anymore. We lost them. But it was good when it lasted.
Yeah, I liked that place.
Was there another question that we wanted to try to answer, or no?
Well, that whole second half was. You had a second half.
There's a bunch in there. I could get another one.
No, I'm saying it was the second half of that question.
What's the second half of that question, Nick?
So the second half of the question was the property my second property that I lease is on the Arkansas River. My stand location right by the river with a food plot and mineral out. I have several mature deer at this location that daylight pretty regular in the late afternoon.
That one I actually is, if I remember right, I said, sounds like you're pretty much on them. I don't know.
I think that I don't think he's doing anything. I would have a stand somewhere where the biggest thing to consider there is a way to get out. To be able to get out of there, and so that if he doesn't, you don't get a shot. You don't just only have one day to hunt.
Yep.
You know, you want to be able to. So, however you set that stand up, having some way to get in and out of that stand, as long as. And then, what can kill you on something like this when you only have 3 days to hunt, is the wind could be wrong and you aren't able to hunt it at all. You know, I mean, and depending on whether you're going to be able to hunt that throughout the rest of the hunting season, and you want him to stay there, you make that call whether you're going to go for broke and say I'm going to try to kill him, or because if you're not going to be able to hunt that deer, or they leave there or something like that, I would hunt it. I would try to figure out whatever I could with the wind and go for it.
Yep.
You got
you only got 3 days.
Yeah,
Full
you have nothing to lose.
only.
So,
Yep.
But anyhow, that's kind of what I was thinking, or where I'm coming from.
Okay. Do we want to tackle one more? Or do
I
we
think
wanna
you probably
save
wrap her up for his time's sake.
Okay.
You want to answer one more question though, or no?
Well, I think Easton just
Well,
said
that was 15 or 20 minutes, so.
wrap it up. We'll answer it next time. Another one. Unless you really want to do another one.
No, I don't care. I'll talk about deer hunting all day long.
You have to leave, though, ding dong.
I understand that.
That is a different thing. It doesn't matter if you like to talk about certain things. We know you like to talk all the freaking time.
I don't like if anyone wants to buy 2 kids, I got some, I'll sell you cheap.
You don't own me anymore.
Yeah, I never owned you in the first place.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I think it's funny that we sit here and we talk about in our store, if you call, you're going to get a human. You're actually going to talk to someone. I don't know if that's true if you actually have a that answers the phone.
That's pretty good. That's me.
Are you trying to find
French
one?
general gave John Quincy Adams a pet alligator. Adams kept it in one of the White House bathtubs and enjoyed showing it off.
I think I've heard of that, but
The
that's
only
pretty
person
funny.
I can see doing that since would be Trump.
Or freaking that's
No,
fair.
Curtis.
Curtis, yeah.
Not a president.
Well, Curtis ain't president, but
There's
he
a
will
big
be.
Hey, if
difference.
Curtis was president, that could be.
Oh, nobody
I'd
would
vote-
mess with us.
Yeah.
I'd vote for him.
Canada eats more macaroni and cheese than any other nation in the world.
That's dumb. Who
I'd
cares
had a
about
hard
macaroni?
time believing that they eat more cheese than Wisconsin.
I'm pretty sure Wisconsin can't compare to a whole entire country.
Canada's
didn't you
only,
say
Canada
mac and
only
cheese?
doesn't even have that many people.
Didn't you say mac and cheese?
Yeah, macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, you just said cheese. in
Wisconsin's
Wisconsin.
all about freaking cheese. You're such a dictator. I don't even know why you're in America. You fit right in with the current commies.
Kids these days can't take them anywhere.
Let's see if there's
All right.
He's trying. I think he has another one. Are you?
He's trying to find another
Oh,
one.
I thought you got one more or no?
I will in a minute. You guys just keep talking. You guys are good at talking any other time.
If you guys know how to get hackers out of an account, let me know. Ew. Not good.
I don't know if we've done this one, but we can top this one.
Or if anybody wants to buy a
mayor-
left-handed Phase 4, let me know.
The mayor of a historical district in Alaska was a cat named Stubbs, who served until its death in 2017. Now, may not seem that wacky to us, because we knew of a dog,
I know his
Beauregard.
No,
right?
yeah, Beauregard, and he was the mayor of
He's
a town
a mayor.
Yeah.
in Montana.
Yeah, not just this one was a mayor too.
As you just said.
But Well, of a historical district. I don't know what that
Oh.
means. Beauregard was the mayor of a town
Yeah.
in Montana.
You would see it. Matter of fact, when we would drive out to Matt's place, you would have to be careful not to hit Beauregard. He's like, don't run over the mayor. He's on his way home. You know, he was a basset hound.
Where would he be? Would he be?
He
with
would walk
somebody?
all the way from town back to their house, which was about 1.5 miles, 2 miles out of town.
Alone?
Oh, yeah, by himself. You'd see him all the time.
How?
Because they would take him to town. He would hang out at the gas station, and then
Isn't he
he'd
was
get
at
tired.
the post office too?
Yeah, or anywhere in town, you'd see him, and then he'd get tired of hanging around in town, and he'd walk home, and you'd see him walking that road.
He was the
And-
mayor.
How
Yeah,
does he never get lost or like go somewhere else? He's a freaking
don't
dog. I feel like he'd go
he knew
somewhere
what he
else.
was doing.
He knew he had a responsibility. That's pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Beauregard.
You
Well,
can
for the-
now get a headstone with a QR code called Living Headstones. They show pages with photos, video, biographies, and comments from loved ones.
Okay, that's actually
That's weird,
pretty
though.
freaking. No, it's not.
I think that.
Why?
Is weird.
Think about it. When you are in a cemetery, and there's some places that are like pure history. It would be interesting to see. For instance, the cemetery right next to your house.
Yeah. You're saying
It would be kind of cool to be able to say, "Oh, I wonder what happened to that one." Like there's freaking a bunch of babies in that cemetery. I would like to know what was going through that everybody had issues.
I don't know. I'm not that. Now it's almost kind of morbid.
I think
Why?
it is.
I mean,
somewhat.
I'm not sure that I understand where you're coming from, but that's just like all of a sudden you're phased.
Do you
this is
disagree with funerals?
No, but I disagree.
That's what
with,
it is.
My funeral is not going to be all sad and sappy. It's going to be a party.
Okay.
I want everybody to. I'm going to play Aaron Chupa, have a rave in the grave.
I was
Because it is a party. It's a celebration of
more
life.
so referring to the fact that in a funeral, the point of it is to celebrate the life that they had, and you only get that for one day. When they go on the ground, if you had that on there, you could be able to see all those happy memories, the cool things,
Okay.
everything else. For
Now,
I can't decide.
hold on. Now let's just say this becomes a thing, right? That people are all these headstones. So now 2 or 3 people are at the cemetery, which is usually fairly quiet. You can pay your respects. You're having, but no, Easton's over there because they got this on there because Warren left him this party stuff. This is what I want you to remember me by, while they're over there crying because their grandpa, who was trying to tell them, no, see, I don't think that. I think there's a place for it and there's not
I'm
a place for
quite
it.
certain that nobody is going to walk up
And start
scan a
ding.
QR code and see that and be like, "Oh yeah, they're dead, man! Woo woo yeah! No,
Dude, people are weird. I'll bet you there'd be somewhere like if it was a wife, she's flashing him.
yeah, well that would be beneficial for anybody that's around. But
And she would be like flashing, and be like, "Tom, this is so that I know you come visit me every day."
harmless. I find it harmless.
I think it's weird.
I can't
If
decide
you think
if
it's
I would.
weird, I'm going to give it an X, man.
I don't know.
If you had to do one, I can't decide if I would either have like a picture of an elk or a deer or something that comes up,
Or a wiener.
or just be like, "Boop." I can't decide which I'd rather do.
Well, I don't think that you get to decide because when
Yeah,
are
you
they
can do
making
that
it?
beforehand.
Is your wife making it to put for you, or do you do it beforehand?
Write
you know?
that in my will. This is what I want on my QR code.
Yeah, I'm guessing that they compile it if I had to guess, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's kind of weird, But you know what? Let's leave it up to you guys. Send us in what you think. Tell us whether having a QR code on your grave would be morbid or whether it would be something pretty cool.
I wouldn't even have one. So I'm getting cremated. I'm going to be with the birds
Right. So there'll just be a QR code on your mantle.
and the elk.
You don't need it there.
All right. Hey, guys, we sure appreciate you at the Raised Hunting Crew. And again, we have products, and lots of you have asked, mainly the scents and the knocks, and there's some other stuff on there as well. So check that out. Easton he hasn't said it today, but raisedhunting.com is where you can find all of that. But other than that, we're signing off, and we will see you guys again next week. And have a good week.
Peace, love, and deer.